Start. By way of introduction, my name is Dumi Muleke. I'm actually standing in for Ronette Angela, who was supposed to facilitate this session, but she's delegated downwards. So I'm the one who caught the break for the session. But I also have the unfortunate situation of being a facilitator on a topic that I'm also overseeing in my work life. So I'm gonna try and limit my involvement to the bare minimum, so as to allow Sithembiso to take through and lead us in the discussion, because it can be. I'm going to try and avoid the temptation to answer as the head of the unit in any of the, or to provide any input. And I hope, Sithembiso, you don't ever ask me to do that in the presentation. So you will flow with the presentation as you've prepared and do so. So yeah, welcome everybody. The topic for this webinar, I think it's part of the GTAC weekly webinars. We want to try and not keep you long for obvious reasons. This being Friday preceding a long weekend, and thank you very much for coming through and joining us. I'm sure you could be busy with other things. We appreciate your presence here. Sithembiso's CV and intro is on the screen. I will just give people a minute or so to go through and see his credentials and therefore the basis for him to talk about this topic. Suffice to say that generally in PPPs we do long-term contracts, and we set a whole set of objectives and the function of making sure that which we set out to achieve in the contract and making sure that this piece is a very useful thing to do, so that we track the performance and we track the objective. So Sithembiso plays a role in that regard, and the presentation today is about our experiences over the past few years and him personally leading that space. So without any further ado, Sithembiso, I'll hand over to you to run with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Tumi, and greetings to everyone that has attended the meeting. And I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to present the type of work that we do in the environment that we are living in. And fortunately today, I've got no much disclaimers, because the example that I've been making, it's one example. I'll be taking this as a case study presentation. So let me just go straight to the presentation. Mpati, can you confirm if I'm beaming?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I'm starting right at the end of the presentation. Can I move to the beginning? All right. As you have seen, I've been introduced. Thank you very much to me. And the part that I'm going to take you, it's not a long presentation. It's just that we have segmented it to the readable points. And these are the points that I will be sharing today, which is going to really project what is the objective about, what is it that we are doing, and how are we managing what we are doing, and what is the current situation that will talk to success and challenges. And the reason why also I have projected the project's life cycle is to make it simple for those that are not in the space of a PPP to understand where is the contract management placed. Is placed right at phase 4 development, start from there. But I'll be talking through that. We go through inception stage, which is not what I'm going to be sharing about. And we also go through feasibility, we go through procurement, and up to the phase where we get the final approval. So once we've got that final approval, that's where then the work actually starts. So today we will be talking to what exactly happens and what are the benefits of the projects that we are currently doing. So this is just to demonstrate that the partnership between the governments are really able to create a sustainable value over time. So because the project that I'm going to be talking about, it was a 15-year project and now has been extended for some time now. And as well as also to show that the partnership can trigger a faster economic growth, at the same time provide a platform for sustainable job creation. I'll be talking to all these points. So as well as the purpose is to demonstrate that partnership, as I've said, and the objective really is to share the acquired information on managing contracts through the following: how we provide contractual support, monitor and identify the early warnings, the risk management and mitigation, management support and output specifications. And maybe sometimes this might be sound to be at a very high level, but it will be broken down and you will see how these pieces are getting together. Then currently, this is the project that we are currently managing. These are only projects that have been completed, and some of the projects have already run its term. But because we have a challenge in our space that our project never dies, whether it has closed or whether it was registered the other time, they always come back. That is why I am mentioning that the most active project, even those that are closed, because we still use those projects for academic, for reference, and for all those things. They are 31 in total. In transport, we had 6. As you can see on the others, all those 6 for transport has closed now. Office accommodation, we have 7. On the other side, all those 7 for office accommodation are operational. Correctional services, we have 2. They are still operational. Municipality, we have 5. And also the public entity, we have 4. So in total, the current running projects are 24. And there are some other projects in the municipal space that might also be added soon. Am I still sharing? My sharing just left a little bit.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. So moving over, then the partnership relationship, what then does happen? This is a high level of what happens when we form a partnership between the private party. The government in a PPP environment provide the following. It's land for the project. That land, we don't do any PPP if the land does not belong to government. So that land should be available to the project, free and undisturbed use for the possession granted to the private party for the duration of the contract. All those. So with the other project, I just told them, because they kept on trying to find out how they can use the property, just told them to treat themselves as if they do not have land. They do not have property that belongs to the private party up until the end of the project. If they need to use that particular land, they have to follow certain protocols and speak to the private party to get a permission to run with that property. Then as government also, we provide the concession to the private party to contract and operate. We ensure that they contract and operate for the duration of the PPP. If it's 20 years, we need to give them that concession. And also we have to honor the payment of monthly and quarterly unitary fees, which is our obligation for the services that we are receiving. I'm going to touch to this a little bit on the next few slides. And then what does the private party does? The private party, first of all, they source the funds. So we, in the forefront of the project, we do not pay anything for the project. They source the funds. They design and do the design and planning for that particular building. For in this case, I'll be talking about Nkos Albert Luthuli. Then they do the development of that project office, which is construction, most of it. Then they operate that particular project, the office accommodation or the Gautrain. They have to operate up until the end of the term that they have been given. Then in operating that, they will do maintenance, repairs, and ongoing upkeep of that particular project, which includes the cleaning, the insurance, and other services such as specialized services, IT, catering, and any other service. It's not restricted to one service, it's a multiple. And the way that our standardization is made, it accommodates almost all the projects, and it has to be tailor-made for that particular project. Moving over. So the reference project today is going to be Inkosi Albert Luthuli. How did it came to exist? How is it operating? What is our role, and what do we do as government in managing this? What does the private party do as well? So the following points we'll be talking to those. So each point that I'm touching to, it covers both the private and the government. So the contract was awarded in March 2001 to Impilo Consortium. It was a 15-year contract. Treasury approval in line with the PFMA regulation was given in October. So sometimes this becomes a little bit confusing because most of us understand that the regulations were signed in 2004, but they were already there in 2001 and they were implemented fairly. So Inkosi Albert Luthuli is one of our flagship, and it used this PFMA fully. So when we are doing the benchmark, it's one of the hospitals that you can use, irrespective that the regulations were signed later, but they were used fully. So the contract was signed in December 2001, and the first patient was admitted in June 2002. Fortunately for me, I didn't experience the acceptance and the accommodation of the first patient because I started there in July 2002. And the project owner is KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health. Maybe I need to talk a little bit on this. When we're talking about the project owner, because this will also surface somewhere later in the presentation, the National Treasury do not own any PPP. The KZN department incubated the idea. They came up with the initiation. When they felt that they want to do this project as a PPP, it's only then they approached the National Treasury. And this project remains the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health. At no stage does it belongs to National Treasury or Provincial Treasury. Then when I'm talking to the challenges, you'll understand why I'm putting this up front to say we don't own this project, we support them. So the level of care is tertiary hospital, where they provide for people with significant comorbidities, and it's a quaternary level as well. So it means that they provide a highly specialized service where people have got different, multiple disciplinary comorbidities or challenges. Maybe a person might have a heart, would need cardiac and renal, who may need the other, or maybe neuro, who will need the neurosurgeon. Those things falls under quaternary level. So the capacity is 146 beds, and it's only a referral. So if you feel that you have a headache and you need support, you cannot go to Inkosi Albert Luthuli. They will attend to you, they will triage you and put you to high care if they can, because they cannot turn back, but it's not allowed. So it's situated in Katomena in Durban. So how is it formed, and what does the concession does? So they work according to the output specification. When we are doing the PPP, we don't imply and we do not give the private party the instruction of what they need to do. They formulate the output specification, and they need to adhere to those specifications. So that is how it works. So those outputs, for the output for medical equipment, IMT, were produced based on the state-of-the-art industry. What does the state-of-the-art industry? It means when they are supposed to buy an equipment that needs to be changed, they have to buy a high-end, not the best. the high-end equipment. And unfortunately, we were paying for that particular risk. To demonstrate that every medical equipment, or most of them, depending on their classification, they had to be changed in 5 years. But later, there was a discussion to change the medical equipment as they require change because it became expensive. But the IMT, which is information management and technology. Why information management and technology? Because they did not look at this as IT, because it brings everything together. It forms a backbone for the running of the entire hospital. The entire hospital runs through this IMT. So that is why they did not really put that as IT, but they included information management and technology. Then the FM services have to be provided according to the detailed output specification, as I've mentioned. They are so detailed. If you want to go and have a look at the output specification, we had, I think, excess of 30 or more output specification that deals with each category of the IMT. So if you want to look at the clinic, you have got its specific category. If you want to look at security, it's got its specific category. Each schedule doesn't work with the other. They complement each other, but they are independent. Yes, it was a complex and rigorous design, which is based on self-monitoring. Even though I always say that I pride myself with the contract that the PPP processes comes with, because when you're looking at those PPP, when you're implementing those contracts, it's a joy to implement them. Yes, there are people errors, there are people intervention, but when you are focusing on the agreement, then you then get to appreciate the rigorousness and the complexity that those that prepared them went through. It might take a long time, but the product thereafter, I'm saying it's wonderful. I'm not really singing the praises because I work there. I sing the praises because it's my tool of trade. And having looked at all the contracts that are there, fortunately, I'm looking at them right now, the JPCC, the NEC, the SACE, and all those 4 of them. Sometimes I feel they even fall short of the standardization that we have because of how well and how much does it cover. It almost covers everything that you need. So then it got a help desk as well that really works wonders. I've also looked into this as well, also to present the economic benefit. I'll stay a little bit on this one, because why also am I terming it as well economic benefit? Because when you look at the following slide also will present what I'm saying. When you look at what Impilo is made out of, which is you look at the shareholders, all those shareholders have got employees. You will see the numbers. They also are doing business with South African businesses. The one that is very, very significant is the issue of medical equipment. Inkosi Albert Luthuli is the one of the most active purchasers of equipment in South Africa. If they can stop, there's going to be a serious gap because the government departments do not replace the medical equipment. So there is that kind of thing to say the medical market is receiving a serious boost with the Inkosi Albert Luthuli being existent. Also in the IMT industry, as well as FM services, the procurement there is ongoing every time. So on the other side is the structure of what happened there. You can see on top, there's a health department, which is the project owner, and below them, the shareholders of Impilo Consortium. And under Impilo Consortium, we've got the medical equipment, which is Vulindlela Siemens, and the IMT technology is run by AME and Vulindlela. The facilities management is run by Tsepo now because they took over Drakenskull. So, and then the product that gets there is Inkosi Albert Luthuli. So also on the other side, which I'm not going to be touching, you see how the shareholding and the lending and how the monies were poured in and they were accumulated to run this particular project. I'm not going to talk to the figures, but they are there to show that this thing works. The banks are able to loan the departments, even at provincial level, and these machines can run its time. So when it comes to the employment, Impilo Consortium is the SPV, which is the one that are managing the Inkosi Albert Luthuli Hospital. It's run by one person who's supported by the board. So the board members are not included here. And then we have AME Africa, who is running the IMNT. They've got 76 employees. We've got Tsebo, Heart FM, who is running. When I'm saying Heart FM, that includes the engineering side of the facilities management, the structures, building fabric, the mechanical, the electrical. So it's run by Tsebo. Then we've got Umungi FM, which has got 650 employees. That's where the securities, the cleaners, the milk kitchens, everything that is included with the soft services are. And then we have Consolen, who's running medical equipment. They've got 19 employees. These do not include the expertise that they bring in when they have the challenges. We still have got that access that when they have challenges, they can bring people from UK to come and fix those medical equipment, because most of them when were supplied by Siemens, and that Siemens was in UK. One thing that I also wanted to share the significance of this is Inkosi Albert Luthuli is in one of the projects that are being renewed. They want to come back to a PPP again. So then they had to approach the work study to see how they can move these people from the private party to Inkosi Albert. Almost about 45% of these employees, about 45, close to 50, they were going to be cut off from the establishment to accommodate the government work study. But we didn't get the final report because it was stopped at that time, because there was kind of a bloodbath that was seeming to be coming for the cutting off the employment, almost half of the staff, especially at the soft FM, as well as all other specialists. All those were at risk of being removed. So I'm bringing that to say that it talks to the point of sustainable employment. So when it comes to the contract management, that's how now we are managing it. Our emphasis is to say that we always maintain the part of being the partnership, which is almost sometimes becomes my job to ensure that we don't move away from the partnership, because most of the time we lose that. Once we have the project, we lose that spirit of partnership and we become to be the boss. You'll understand now who takes that part, and the others becomes the subordinate, and you'll understand who does become the subordinate. The issue with this is that we then start to lose on the risk transfer, because once we start interfering with the private party works, we lose the risk transfer. As Ratipe would say, that risk transfer it costs money. It costs money, so you will pay that for that risk. So you will have to understand that once you start taking that kind of risk, then you are putting yourself, maybe I won't even say double dipping, because you will pay for the risk that they're supposed to do, but you also do the job. And if that job fails, you cannot go back to the private party and say you're going to charge them penalty. I'm going to talk to that. I'm ahead of myself a little bit. And the legislative requirements, I mentioned them, and we are using them. We are using the PFMA. And in terms of the PFMA, we are specifically using the Treasury Regulation 16. But to get to appoint that company that we need, that private party, we have to fully use Treasury Regulation 16A. So the internal procurement or conventional procurement is fully used. So then I'm saying that because sometimes we find people disassociating the Treasury Regulation A to the Treasury Regulation 16A and 16B. They are complementing each other. So then we've got MFMA for the municipality, a Systems Act for municipality, and we have got the National Treasury Contract Management Framework, as well as PPP Framework, which is made up of standardization, which I spoke about, as well as PPP Manual. This is under PPP Manual Module 6. Then when you're looking at this, you're looking at the framework of the PPP. Why I'm projecting this? I'm projecting this to indicate they are indicative times, as well as they are the agreement administration from year one, even though we find that most of the projects really do not adhere to trying and get someone to be involved with the PPP preparation from day one. So maybe I should have made one disclaimer to say that if you are listening to this presentation, I always prefer that you don't look at it as a PPP presentation. The only advantage we have is that we are enforcing it, but it's a contract management as it should be on all projects, whether it's a SCOM project, a Transnet project. So look at it that way. So if then we can be able to do these things in our project will run even far better. So these things are showing on the other side, right on the extreme side, on the right-hand side, the role of the people that are managing this contract. And these people should be co-opted very early. If it's because of the financial constraints, at least that person should be there year 2 and year 3 during procurement, because it becomes very difficult to start at a later stage. The good example for that, I started right at delivery stage. I would get to a meeting, they will talk about the diffusers, they will talk about all those things, and really you'll think that it's something that you do not know, yet they are talking about the lights. So, and you find yourself having to go through thousands and thousands of documents to catch up. So it is very important to run with this project from as early enough, because the knowledge that you acquire as you are running through this project is very, very important. So what is our approach as government? Our approach as government is supposed to be hands-free. And as far as I'm concerned, we went to this process because of certain needs, and we appointed the private party Impilo for Inkos Albert Lutuli because we couldn't really equip that hospital. Fortunately, the hospital was constructed by Public Works, so we couldn't provide it. But now when the Impilo is there, our role is to steer, just show them where they are doing wrong and try to guide them, but not to interfere. They've got the expertise. I've got examples and examples of PPPs that were done because they did not have expertise. But a month later, even for renal dialysis, 3-4 months later, when they see how well the unit is running, they are beginning to say, we need to take this thing back because we can do it ourselves, looking at the efficiency. Yet, they were supposed to focus on quality assurance, performance monitoring, and corrective action. That's all what needs to happen, because the slide there shows you that once you start singing with the choir, that's when the problem starts. Because you cannot then come there and start to say that you will penalize that choir when they are not singing very well. So looking at then the performance, the government project representative, the role of the representative, one of them is the accounting officer. The accounting officer here remains important from day one up to the last day of the project. Then I have brought this risk allocation movement to indicate one of the gray areas that we don't normally look at when we are managing the project. So if you are looking at the risk at design phase, design and building, it's fully contractor's risk. But as the project moves, as the project matures, up to where the construction management is completed, that risk slowly moves back to us as government. But normally it finds us not ready to take those projects. These are the things that you are experiencing on day-to-day basis on your radios and TVs when they are talking about the cost overruns and the time overruns of the project. Because when we start, everyone is comfortable because the contractor is managing the entire risk. But at the end, you are supposed to be managing the full risk. Fortunately, in the PPP environment, it will be a private party, but it doesn't exonerate the government to say they must be hands off because the risk allocation has shifted. So then we also have got the project officer who most of the time becomes the contract manager. So in the areas where we have such, we have beautiful projects. You can call, I can name them, basic education, it happened, DIA, it happened, foreign affairs, as well as state SA. It all happened where the project officer moved over to contract management and it worked very well. And where the project officer changed, like it happened for me at Inkos Apet Lutel. I was not even a project officer at that time. I was a facilities manager, but the change of leadership really provided an instability on our side. Now, the role of the contract management team is very important, not in the PPP environment, in the setting of the project. The question I've been asking for, or the research topic that one of my colleagues has been looking at, is to find out how much is the government investing in monitoring each million that they are spending. I'm paraphrasing it. Each million that the government is spending, how much are they investing in monitoring that million, whether it does the work that it's supposed to do? Only to find if that is not happening, maybe you also have to forgive me that I don't talk too much to what is written on the slides, because the slides are going to be available. I'm touching on the important points as well because of time as well. So when you look at the figure on the side and you look at the sequence of events, you can see from one stage to another, there is a loss of communication. There is no integration. So one person comes, the customer comes with something, the project leader comes with something. The reason why I love this slide is that I got it from the IT person, and it's not even from the PPP, which then you can see it talks to programmers. But because there is no one that ties each and every steps, so when then do we go wrong? We find that you see the quadrant number 3, bottom middle. Most of the time, that is how we build as government. We always hold our heads when we're listening at the millions that we are paying. And when we are looking at the last quadrant, you look at what we've received, and then you wonder how it happened. And it happened because we are saving a lot when it comes to contract management and performance monitoring, and also not giving those people authority to manage these things. But when you get that tire after paying for a roller coaster, it becomes an issue. So the link between the private, the contractors and the government is very, very crucial. Now, most of people always ask us, Uguti, what then do you have to possess to be a good project manager? Unfortunately, we do not have a straight answer. And also, it also comes up a lot to say, at what level should they be? So we do not have a straight answer for that. But this competency triangle from the PMI indicates exactly how we should be built, or how we should be focusing, or how we should, the behavioral, the strategic and business management, the technical acumen, and the leadership. The combination of these is what a contract manager needs to almost possess. And you can see there are no qualifications here, but it's mostly what needs to be acquired along the way. Have I acquired it? I'm getting there. So then when it comes to corporate governance, why this becomes important? It becomes important because there is the PPPs are mostly becoming the enemies of their own success. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because you find that because there is always a contractor on site, a private party that is there to do their work, and they know that if they don't do this work, they will have to be paid. This then becomes an isolated element of the department, isolated element of the Department of Health. Only come there when there's a problem, only come there when there's a steering committee. So, which is not a problem, but the problem is when then you neglect this thing up until the stage where you find that it's no longer even look like the part of your strategic objective. Okay, I'm carrying on. So then when it comes to communication, the project, okay, let me just finish the statement I was saying. Each project, Inkosi Albert Luthuli, Impilo Consortium, is an extension of government. Why an extension of government? If they would move tomorrow, government has to replace them. It's not like to say to replace them for people that are going to do the exact work. But if then you have a bakery that provides you bread, if sorry, can I have someone to unmute him or herself? So the bakery, if the bakery is not performing, you just change the bakery. You can get another one, or you can even replace bread. But with this one, you have to get the same competencies. You have to get this. You cannot close Inkosi Albert Luthuli. So now the question comes, how do you then wake up one day and get someone to tell you, we have decided to add 40 floors? It's a synopsis, but it's things that are happening in South Africa on day to day. You hear those things. They have done these things now. What is going to happen next? In the PPP environment, nothing, because we are taking a fit for purpose project. But in the government, you'll go through courts and government will lose, and you'll have to pay for those 40 floors. And then the question will come with, how were we monitoring these projects? Were they self-monitoring? Most of the time, yes, they were self-monitoring, we're not there. So what then we need to understand is that every project that we are managing as a project manager, the essence of a contract manager, the essence of a performance monitor is communication. Communication and communication as well as communication, nothing below that, because you don't do job, you happen to do specification and variation sometime, but yours is to communicate. Yours is to communicate. Right, this is the hierarchy or the communication hierarchy that we have. When I started my early years, 2008, 2009, with the PPP, I used to say, it's fine if you can work with this thing and accommodate it and you use it according to how your project is. But I grew up to change that and say that this is the way to go. For each and every project, this is the way to go. You have your contract management team, you have your liaison committee people, you have your steering committee people, and these people have got difference in work they have to do, very important. But the top part, you find themselves that they really remove themselves away from this. And the challenge with this is, I'm the victim of that. You find that you work there at contract management level, but you have to sit there at steering committee one day and chair with a private party CEO that has got a one for Inkosi Albert Luthuli, has got an LLM. The CFO is got what you call it is a CA, and it's got all this I. The CA people have got I's. All their qualification has got I in the beginning. He's got all those I's that are required. He's about to retire, so he deserves them. They brought the engineers. One of them had mechanical and electrical, both from the University of Natal. They brought the lawyers. You could see their business cards, and then you start asking yourself, which topic are you going to be talking about? I'm saying this because there is a disconnect between how we view or how we invest in managing our contract compared to how the private party invest in managing their contract. For an example, we went to, sorry, that one is a bit out. We went to Ilembe to negotiate the BEE because that one was done prior to the new codes. When we got there, we found lawyers for the private party. Almost all of them came from different countries, not continent, countries. One from Malaysia, one from UK, I don't know one from where, but all of them. And you could not even understand their qualifications, the way how qualified they were. With us, there was not even a single lawyer in the room. So one thing, and they came to say to us, to tell us one thing, 3 of them, highly qualified, to tell us, when we contracted, this law was not there. We're not going to cooperate. They ended there. So I'm saying this to demonstrate how are we as government disadvantaging ourselves when it comes to investing to our own people to manage the project. It comes back to the question to say, how much are we investing to monitor $1 million that is being spent? Then we also have the partnership management dispute resolution. That also, when I come to this one, it's where I really start to appreciate the PPP agreement and the way they are crafted. And I always say that even if the department don't use the PPP, there's quite a lot to learn from the way these are crafted, because there is a clear dispute resolution. And the dispute resolution is not compromised. And it doesn't say that because it's a CEO that is in problem, let it start there. It has to start from the bottom. And why is that important? Because everyone knows what has happened. And it goes like that up until it's escalated. There are mechanics of fast track resolution that you have to go through. All those interventions that are being made, up until you find that you have exhausted everything that you need to exhaust, then you go for litigation. Fortunately for Inkosi Albert Luthuli, we have never gone for any litigation, and fortunately, so far, none whatsoever has gone through that phase to date. Because the thing that I always tell them, for State SA, we tried during the construction, but we quickly realized that you bring the SCs, the senior councillors, and the senior councillor for Inkosi Albert Luthuli will sit there and read only the contract, not the statutes, not the laws, not anything. They cannot dilute it because it's one contract. And the SC with the junior SCs, maybe 3 or 4, they will read the same document. At the end of the day, they will make a determination based on the same document. And we pay for SC and 4 junior SCs to read to us what we have in our exposure. We end up paying millions. It cannot be less than $1 million to engage the SC and junior councillors. Now, when it comes to monitoring risk and monitoring risk, let me catch a breath a bit. We run with this thing, we run with risk management, we run with affordability, we run with value for money for day 1 of the contract up until the last day of the contract. We do not lose these 3 concepts. That's what we do. That's what we are paid to do, to say that the rand and cents that they've paid for Inkosi Albert Luthuli, are they still doing what they are supposed to do? So the value for money, unfortunately, the value for money, the way we explain it in a monetary term. But when you look at what Inkosi Albert Luthuli offers, when you look at what the other health PPP offers, you cannot get it anywhere. You cannot get it anywhere. So I've got what you call personal experience. My mom goes there for geriatrics treatment. If you look at the type of treatment, because if you are a geriatric patient, they have to take you through almost every not treatment, check-up that they have for old people up before they make a determination. So if you look at that, going through all those scanners, going through all those things, going through all those specialists, just to pay a pensioner's fee. So that is the value for money that nobody can take away from this project. So it also shows how well are these projects positioned to support the community. So ours is to ensure that the level of performance is achieved all the time. So if you look at that, that picture there, that is what we are trying to guard against from the onset. Because when we get to this point, we also ask ourselves, what happened? Where were you? Utumi would ask me, Kaya, when this thing happened, where were you? But we are managing these projects as well carefully, because we are also trying not to bring all this thing back to our management as well, because it's not their project. We are supporting this project. If it was according to the institutions, the department, the National Treasury would be managing, would be owning all those 24 projects, because when the auditors comes, all of them, they say this is a National Treasury project. So if we can then bring all the problems that we have to the management of GTAC and you, they will be working on this thing every day, because it's challenging and they don't want to take responsibility. So how do you get to this situation and how do we resolve them? We get to this situation because we don't monitor. We get to this situation because we do not do what we are supposed to do. Because you have to see this thing early enough. You have to see the early warnings at Inkosi Albert Luthuli. I'll make an example of something that may look very, very small in the naked eyes, but when you're looking at it at a global figure, you can see how significant it becomes. And what we are dealing with in terms of cost overruns and time overruns in South Africa is exactly what I'm going to be making an example of. At the same area at Inkosi Albert Luthuli, at some stage, we have 846 patients that are supposed to receive 4 slices of bread per day. So it means it's 2 sandwiches. For 4 sets, 3 sets, 1 in the morning, 1 during the day, 1 in the afternoon with tea. But later we realized that they're only providing 2 slices of bread per patient. If you are looking at it per patient, you'll see, no, they are saving 6 slices of bread. What a fuss. But you start counting that 6 times 846 per day, and you look at how many slices are those. And then you start multiplying that by 386 because they have to receive those bread every day. Then that's why you start to see that it may look small when it starts, but at the end of the day, it's bigger. And if you don't see it, it leads to the other because you are not there. So for us, we have to make sure that when they are doing that rate, we've employed them, they are doing that rate, and most of the time with conventional projects, we find these things when we've even released the retention cost. It means that those people are there just to pick litter, because now we have to pay from our pocket to fix this thing, because we just look at the first 10 kilometers of the rail this side and look at the first 10 kilometers of the rail that side. So it's something that looks cumbersome, but if it's not done, it's even worse. So for us, we have to do is to issue the formal warnings and the deductions and the penalty deductions. And the penalty deductions are not made in such a way that there should be a punishment. They are reasonable, but you should feel them. So I'm not going to talk too much to this one because it's contract administration and finance administration. But this has to be kept up to date all the time. The good thing is that one of my biggest work that I'm doing is consultation with the auditors. Because all the time when the PPP has got a negative finding, or the way they call it, they have to call us to explain to the auditors how is this supposed to run. So the only way we can be able to stand our ground is to have this contract administration up to date. So if it's not up to date, then we cannot really support that particular department. And it's not that much of things that need to be done. It's according to what is done there. When it comes to financial administration, it's also not that difficult for PPPs. It may be difficult for the other project with a bill of quantities. It may be difficult because you have to count all those. But with the PPP, it's only this. I'm almost to the end. In terms of the contract variation, as you can see, the first statement, few contracts stays the same. In fact, I don't even think there are projects that could stay the same for 30 years. So changes will occur. Again, blowing the PPP horn, this is provided for in the PPP agreement, all of them. So you have a way of working with your own internal small works. And also you have a way of working with material variation. What is small works? Small works is, you can see that picture. If you want to change that window from where it is, or you want to put the door, it's small works. You can do that, and the department will have to pay that. But the material variation, it's something bigger than this, but there are 3 tests that you have to check. If the contract is going to be affected in terms of changing or addendum and anything of that sort, it requires the National Treasury approval. If the unitary fee is going to change, we still have to test the value for money, the risk transfer in that one, if it still stays the same. Also, that third one, if is going to, it's money, it's term, and it's also the contract itself, those 3 things, if any of those will change. So the last one that that brought me, or that made me to bring this picture here, is the one that is crippling South Africa, the no-cost charges. This is brought as an example. The synopsis here is that, the scenario is that the private party will come and tell you that, or no, let me not say the private party, the company that you, the contractor, that they are going to build for you these beautiful stairs, and they will end there, and it's for free. They will build it there, just to make the thing simple, and close the other door that is the main entrance. You didn't see the small prints. So what then would happen if you want to access this? Just to make this thing interesting again, the MEC, the minister, wants to open this beautiful hall. Then you are under pressure. And that's where the problem starts. And that's where the South African problem starts. Then you start with now small and material variations that sometimes don't even approve. You pay $1 million for building that door. You pay $1 million for removing that pipe. You pay $4 million maybe for 10 other things that are there. At the end of the day, for a no-cost changes, you end up paying 10 million and more. So this is to guide everyone to say it's not always rosy-rosy to say that you're going to receive this free variation. It doesn't work like that. Scrutinize it as much as you're going to scrutinize all other variations. So we've had different variations with Inkosi Albert Luthuli, and most of them, the biggest one was the changes of the floors and the additional of the water tower, the water cooler up there. They have a water cooler plant. I'm going to show you that water cooler plant, but it's not very, very feasible. So when it comes to the contract administration and exit, so I've got one more slide after this, unfortunately. This one, it's a simple process, because when we started in 2002 in Inkosi Albert Luthuli, we had a 15-year contract. We should have been prepared for this. Unfortunately, when you are there, you don't really see that 15 years will ever come. And when it comes, the challenge that the decision makers have, most of them, especially at the Inkosi Albert Luthuli, they want to take back the project. They have tried to take back the project. One of the issues was that the employment is going to immediately cut by 50%. The specialists, they were all going to be cut off. The project became even more expensive when you are running it internally, and as well as looking at all other hospitals that are around Inkosi Albert Luthuli, then you wonder who's going to take a decision to close the flagship of the continent. So we are waiting to see who's going to do that. So everyone then, what then they end up doing, they sit on the decision. So we have that particular challenge, but I'm going to talk to them. So it's a simple process in terms of the exit handover, but the decision making hampers it. So the last part of the presentation is to look at the success factors. So we have no failed projects so far. The only two that closed, and the one is in the process of closing, it was closed on the mutual agreement because of the market failure. There was no market where they were doing those two hospitals. They were private hospitals in Palabora, and it wasn't working well. So the high quality of output, the output is very high. Maybe if you want to see the laptops that they run around with when they are doing the patient visit. At Inkosi Albert Luthuli, there's no patient. If I said that in the last presentation, if you see a patient running with a patient's records at Inkosi Albert Luthuli, you must know that that patient is coming from another hospital, is being referred, because they do not carry any paper. The only thing you need to carry is your ID, your identification. When you get there, they punch your information and they tell you that you go there. You're going to this particular ward. I've made an example of neurosurgery. You're going to neurosurgery today, and the specialist is waiting for you. When you get there, the neurosurgeon will do everything. If he has to do the imaging, that will be done, and it will be stored in the system. So our hospital, that hospital, is called a paperless, if you can hear that tone, less, not paperless. Because when you're saying paperless, people think that we don't use paper. We use paper, tons and tons of it, but very less. Because we don't print scans, we don't print anything, we don't print patient records. And the beauty of it is when the patient is supposed to collect medicine at pharmacy, you get there, your medication is waiting for you. You can really, when you're there, you really think, I'm somewhere else, but you are in South Africa. And how is this happening? You get there within an hour or two. Everything that is supposed to be done to you is done. You've seen maybe 2 or 3 specialists and collected your medication. The buses are coming from all over. There might be buses coming from Mutu, but they leave on time because of how well the system works. The high quality of PPPs and agreements produced, tip-top. Service level enhancement. You get at Inkosi Albert Luthuli, some other hotels wish to have a yard like that, but let me not, because I get emotional when I talk to these things, because I'm very attached to them and I'm very passionate about them. So the consistent employment, I've demonstrated that. And if we want to take back, it's either we pay almost double what we are paying now to accommodate all that in terms of Section 197 of labor relations, or cut the staff in half. So the decision has to be made. Low level of staff turnover. If one engineer leaves, they bring one better, not less. So low level of, okay, then the guaranteed service provision, it doesn't matter whether it's raining, whether there are what you call the floods, the hospital has to work. They will provide accommodation for the staff. They will do everything. They may even fly them with helicopters if they can't, which was the first time in these floods, because no, they didn't fly them, but they were also up to that level if the essential people were not available. So that challenges that we have is the lack of legislative support for our involvement in providing support. We do provide support, but I'll make an example with the Free State Health. We told them about 4 years ago that they need to start working, even it was Albert Lutul. But because we cannot enforce these things, they wait up until they see what we're telling them before they react. This is not happening only at contract management. It happens from the inception. That is our problem on day-to-day basis. You speak to this, if you do this, this is what is going to happen because we are now experienced. So now, at the end of the day, okay, nearly spoke Zulu here. So at the end of the day, they want to see what you were talking about. And by that time, it's too late. They are skeptical with information sharing. People most of the time think that we as GTAC, we are really, we don't want to provide or support people with information. It's not our information, and we cannot share it willy-nilly. And the private, the government institutions with PPPs, sometimes they don't even want to share it with us. I would wake up one day, I'm a member of most of the steercoms. I would wake up one day and find that there was a steering committee that was held a few weeks ago, and that certain decision was made because there was some information that I was not supposed to privy to. Those are the kind of things. So the point 3 talks to the same point as the point 1. There are no punitive measures that we can utilize either when they reject our advice. So when they reject our advice, we can only sit with my manager and wait for God's mercy, because sometimes that is very, very critical. We will have to wait because you go talk to the MEC. I think it was Albert Lutuli. I went up to the office of the MEC and they told us that no, the MEC doesn't deal with that thing. But when I met with the MEC, he was very angry that I didn't tell him that this project was supposed to exit long time ago. But I think now, how are we going to work? Because we cannot just have access to the MEC. We have to go through protocols. These are kind of the lack of political support that we have. No contract management personnel in most of the project. I end up being the most experienced project person that is exposed to that particular project, which becomes a serious issue. For an example, when you talk to even Inkos Albert Lutuli, you talk to Bloemfontein, Free State, I'm the most experienced person there that has been there the longest compared to the other, but still, they don't want to take my word for it. So it's a lack of decision-making, as I've said, and difficulty of exiting PPP at the end based on the lack of decision, and understanding of PPP processes is very limited. This is worrying because we provide training almost on quarterly, but the decision makers are not there to attend to this. So when it comes to decision makers, the only thing that they know is that PPP is expensive. That's when you talk to the decision makers, the first thing they will tell you is that PPP is expensive. Can I quickly make an example here? We exited in one of the PPP that was, yes, sir.
You need to finish now because we are 3 minutes. Your hour of discussion is almost over, so we need to get to the questions soon.
Okay, it's the last slide. It's the last slide in part. Last slide. Okay, no, Bele, let me just finish here without even making this example. Okay, understanding the process that is. So the other important thing is that when you find yourself supporting the private party, the private partner, and you can see that the private partner or the contractor is correct, that is tantamount to betrayal of the institution. So now you find yourself having to tiptoe when your idea, when you are suggesting that the private party is correct in this instance. So by so saying, thank you very much. The following is just the pictures that are there. I will allow for question time. the discussion time and then show you some few pictures. Thank you so much, Mpati, and sorry for running over time a bit.
Thanks, Kai. I think it was a comprehensive presentation. Colleagues, we have time for questions and discussions. I will just take a show of hands as we for Kai, or any other questions. Questions?
To me, there's a question from Musa in the chat.
Okay.
It's why would they need to cut the staff in half?
Why would they need to cut the staff in half?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, you mean when they take over the project?
Yeah.
When the departments take over the project. I think it's an issue around levels of staff and the salaries that are paid in the public sector to lower. So if you understand that in the public sector, the lower levels and above market related salaries. So if you were to transfer them over, you have to up the salaries quite substantially. And you'd either face that, or then that's why the choice was to do that, or to cut down on the number of staff and pay them the same amount, but then take them over and say you have them, because the province could not afford to bring everybody up at the same salary levels. So it's just that. You have your own question, Elaine?
Yes. I was just wondering, I saw earlier there was a question in the chat box around, I think using cooperatives, and you responded because you also said, look, it's very expensive, or it's very big projects. So I was wondering whether you have, when we do public-private partnerships, is it a bracket within which we move, or what? I mean, if we talk about costs, what are the, is it like a minimum cost that the partner brings to the project? How does that work? Do we work at a certain level? Is it mega projects? How big are these projects? Thanks.
The projects are large. So the question about the cooperatives, let me say that there is so as you saw in the diagram, there's a contractor and there's subcontracting that must happen. The contractor is responsible for performance and all of those sort of things. So if he is not performing, he gets penalized, and that's a financial penalty and the consequences of that. So it is not unfeasible to have cooperatives at a subcontractor level. It is not unfeasible, but cooperatives as an entity comes with all sorts of legal challenges as an institution to then say, well, how do they get managed, and who holds their hand, and to do all of that. So it is feasible, but it will require a lot more work in terms of the management, and it might have. Oh, sorry, I was muted there. So I was saying you can, in theory, you can bring the cooperatives in, except that, as I said, the problem is that in these projects, you have the main contractor and then you have the subcontractor. So I can only foresee cooperatives playing a role in the subcontracting space to a limited extent, because the private party, who's the main contractor, takes responsibility, and if they don't perform, there's penalties linked to that. So there's financial implications, and often what they do is they then pass on the responsibility back to back. So if I'm being punished for a responsibility that you fail to perform, you must then pay me. I'm passing on the penalties from upstairs all the way down. So it's like and a boss kicking the manager kicking your husband, and then the man goes to the house, he kicks the dog. So it's almost like something that goes that way. So the person at the lowest must have the capacity to be able to defend themselves. And in this case, the issue around the contract and the ability to penalize the cooperative just by way of how they are organized and the financial responsibility poses a challenge. So you can look at some projects where you can say, well, maybe we'll do that, but contractually it would mean that you'd have to adjust certain things to then say, well, maybe if the cooperative is not performing in accordance to that, you will lessen the penalties if the thing comes from them, but then it complicates the whole contract and the penalties and all of that. But in theory, yes, you can do that. Are there other questions?
Yes, there was another question there in the chat, and then Musa Sele has her name up, so a hand up. Maybe you can go to Musa. And then there was a question in the chat from, I think you've answered it. Harry,
Musa, you can proceed.
Thanks. Yeah. As far as I understand, one of the main reasons for PPP is the skills transfer. It's not only that the private sector can do things better, because that's not always the case, but generally it's the skills transfer. Is it not an indictment on the South African PPP landscape that it seems that when it's time for hand back, that we have these issues where we cannot hand back because either the external environment, whether it's government, is not ready, you know, or something else. But it seems that I don't know whether it's a general thing, but as far as I can pick up, and as far as I've seen, because I've got a view of a municipality PPP, and it seems to be the same scenario playing out, that they can't hand back for one reason or the other. But one of the pillars was the skills transfer. That's what I'm battling to understand it, and I think it's an indictment on our scenario.
I think it's a mixed bag, and the reality of it is that I think Kaya did indicate earlier on that when these things are signed, you know, when we sit in management, when certain things are supposed to be done and focused on, people always tend to think they have time. So one of the things Kaya mentioned earlier on was that you say it's a 15-year contract, and then you assume that now we'll worry about this thing 10 years down the line, and before you know it, the 10 years is on you. Or one of the things that happen is that there's a change in leadership and change in management. So then the thing becomes a priority, and then it drops. It becomes a priority, then it drops. You know, so there's no follow through of consistency in terms of people giving it attention and saying, well, we are now developing you, Musa, to take over that responsibility. So, you know, the instability and the amount of changes we see in our system also creates that. And often because of that, you find that by the time decisions are to be made, the institution is not ready, because the key people who are supposed to make the decisions were either not there, the one was acting, there was this person, and there was this problem. So we have a very fluid, not settled system in terms of our personnel. The one project where I think we did well in terms of the skills was in the renal dialysis in Polokwane hospital, because that included the training of the nurses and the capacitating of the nurses in terms of that. And over time, some of the nurses that were brought by the private party to run the dialysis transitioned into into government. So there was a transfer of skill and resources, and they are running that dialysis unit now. I don't have a sense of data in terms of how well they're doing, but I do know that from that capacity point of view, that was done in that manner. When you look at Nkosi Albert Lituli, as you said, maybe the amount of decision making that was supposed to have happened and the timing at which it was supposed to happen didn't happen at the right time, and the focus on it didn't happen at the time. Because you must appreciate also that often when we say skills development, the private sector's job is just to do what it is contracted to do primarily. That's where they're good at. The other side is government is the one that must then say, okay, we now want the skills, and these are the skills that we want, and this is the program and all of that. They must also come to the party and enforce that. If it's not enforced, it doesn't happen.
To me, one more point.
Go ahead.
Yes, and in instances where the development and skills transfer are taking place, all those that I've seen, that those staff members don't come back to government. So people get skilled, they be moved, seconded to the private party, and they get employment there, and they don't come back. So that's the another scenario that also to add on what Tumi has said. So they've tried, but the staff doesn't come back because now they've got new skills. Thanks, Tumi.
Any other issue, colleagues? We're just about on 15:15. I would hate to keep you longer, but if there are, Teto says cooperatives owned by staff means they are shareholders. Yes, there will be shareholders in the SPVs if they are part of the subcontracting or some form or one way or the other. They'll be, but remember, with shareholding comes responsibilities as well. So if you are a shareholder, if we need money, you must pop in the money. If we take penalties, you must also take penalties. So it's not a unidirectional process. It's a responsibility that comes with that as well, that you must also have take responsibility for. So if you are a shareholder and there are penalties or we are in trouble and we need to pop in money, you have to also come to the party and pop in the money when we call for capital. And when if you have a responsibility to perform and we are penalized, you also must suffer the consequences. So it cuts both ways. But as I said, it's something we have to think about in how we structure these things and how it comes with certain consequences in terms of the penalties and the commercial structure of the project when we do cooperatives. Are there any other issues? In the absence of that, may I take the pleasure to thank you for your attendance and your time this afternoon. I think it was a good presentation. Thanks, Kaya, for insights. It's always good to talk to somebody who's on the call face, who works on these things, and I think that's the point of us sharing these webinars, is to get people to share their experiences and talk as passionately as we have about what they experience and what they see, despite what the textbook says and what we might think or say. So thank you very much for that. And thanks, colleagues. I take the opportunity to wish you a happy long weekend and see you at the next session. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mpati.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.